At this day and age, the internet and the media have become one of the most influential forces humanity has ever created. With just a few clicks, a piece of information can spread to millions of people within hours. It has become a place where people communicate, learn, share opinions, and connect with one another, regardless of distance. The media has changed the lives of countless individuals, turning complete unknowns into household names, bringing them fame, wealth, and opportunities they never thought possible.
Who the fuck is Dixon Boner?
But every great power has two sides. If the media can lift someone to the top, it can also drag them to the very bottom. A single mistake, a moment of weakness, or simply becoming the target of public attention can expose a person to millions of eyes judging, criticizing, and mocking them all at once.
Do not pass judgment on anyone unless you have talked to them one-on-one. I don't care what the story is.
The truly terrifying part is not the criticism itself, but when it lasts long enough for humiliation to become a permanent part of someone's daily life. And when that pressure continues for long enough, when the media tears someone down relentlessly, day after day, the result is no longer the same person. It creates something else entirely. One of the clearest examples of this is Arthur Fleck, an ordinary man living in a rundown apartment, taking care of his sick mother, unnoticed by the world around him. Nobody knew who he was. Nobody cared that he existed, until the media decided to pay attention to him. Let's start with a simple question. Without the media, who is Arthur Fleck? Just an old man working as a clown for hire, living with his mother in a dirty apartment in Gotham. He carries a small notebook filled with jokes. He dreams of standing on a stage and making people laugh, not being laughed at. He's not dangerous, he's just trying to survive. That's the real Arthur Fleck, a man you could pass on the street without even noticing. Not that Arthur is crazy, not that Arthur is evil, it's that Arthur is invisible. And the media, regardless of the era, follows an unwritten rule. If something doesn't generate attention, it doesn't exist. Arthur doesn't generate attention, so to the world, he doesn't exist. But there is one thing that still talks to him every night. Murray Franklin, a top-tier late-night talk show host. For most viewers, Murray is just entertainment. Turn him on before bed, laugh a few times, then switch him off. But for Arthur, Murray is the closest thing to a real connection. He watches every night not because he loves comedy, but because when Murray looks directly into the camera, it feels like he's talking to Arthur alone. This is the first mechanism through which the media creates the Joker, and it doesn't even have to do it intentionally. The media isn't targeting Arthur. It's simply doing exactly what it was designed to do, creating the illusion of connection, making millions of people sitting alone in the dark feel as if they're being seen, even though they're really just staring at a screen. For people with normal lives, that illusion is harmless. But for someone like Arthur, someone with no real connections at all, it becomes the only thing left to hold on to. There is a scene in the film that matters more than the murders, more than the famous staircase dance. It's the scene where Arthur imagines Murray placing a hand on his shoulder and saying, "That's the kind of son I'd like to have." It exists only in Arthur's mind, but it reveals everything. Arthur doesn't want money. He doesn't want fame. He just wants someone to look at him and say, "You matter, you exist." And the media created an environment where he ended up searching for that validation from a man who didn't even know he existed. Then the media finally noticed him, but not in the way he imagined. When footage of Arthur's failed stand-up performance was broadcast on Murray's show, millions of people laughed. None of them knew he was struggling with a mental illness. None of them cared how hard he had been fighting just to get through life, or how desperately he wanted to bring joy to others. To the media, it was simply a funny clip to end the show. To Arthur, it was the first time in his life that the entire world had seen him, even if it was through ridicule. And this is where things become dangerous. The human brain doesn't always distinguish between positive attention and negative attention, especially for someone who has lived in invisibility for so long. Arthur didn't learn that he had been humiliated. He learned something else. If you do something extreme enough, people will notice you. That was a lesson the media taught him without ever intending to. And it was the most dangerous lesson he would ever learn. After the subway killings, when 3 men were left dead, the media activated its final mechanism. The news didn't tell the story of Arthur Fleck, it told the story of a clown-masked killer. Headlines began appearing everywhere, a symbol of resistance, a voice for the forgotten, a punch in the face of the wealthy elite. The media took a deeply personal tragedy and transformed it into a simple narrative, one that was easy to understand, easy to share, and easy to spread. It didn't matter who Arthur really was. It didn't matter what he was thinking. The only thing that mattered was whether the story was compelling enough to go viral. And that was the moment Arthur Fleck, the real person, disappeared completely. What remained was Joker, a character created not only by Arthur himself, but by the way the media chose to tell his story. Murray invited him onto the show, not because he felt guilty, not because he had finally seen Arthur for who he really was. Murray invited him because Joker had become the biggest story in the city. And attention means ratings. That is the logic of the media system. No emotion, no morality. Just whatever is compelling enough to keep people watching. And sitting on that stage, Arthur finally understood the lesson life had been teaching him from the very beginning. For more than 30 years, he had tried to tell the world that he was suffering. Nobody listened. Nobody cared. Nobody wanted to hear an invisible man talk about a life that was falling apart. But now, the entire city was watching him. Not because he was Arthur Fleck, because he was Joker.
Everybody just yells and screams at each other. Nobody's civil anymore. Nobody thinks what it's like to be the other guy.
Arthur had once wanted to be heard through his jokes. He wanted to be seen as a person. But it was only after becoming a media phenomenon that he finally received the attention he had been searching for his entire life. And then the gunshot rang out. It didn't just end Murray Franklin's life. It marked the final death of Arthur Fleck. Most people remember that moment as a murder broadcast on live television. But if you look closer, it is also the climax of a process that had been unfolding throughout the entire film. A desperate man trying to be seen, and a system that only chose to listen once his story became shocking enough to capture its attention. When Joker was released in 2019, many Western media outlets repeatedly warned that the film was dangerous, that it could inspire violence, and that audiences shouldn't watch it. The result? Joker became one of the most successful films of the year, won the Golden Lion at Venice, and helped Joaquin Phoenix earn an Academy Award. A film about the power of media ultimately became one of the biggest media phenomena of that year. The media often claims that it simply reflects reality, but many times it does more than that. It selects reality, frames it, and decides which stories deserve to be seen. Arthur Fleck doesn't change that much throughout the film. His pain is still there, his loneliness is still there. The only thing that changes is the amount of attention he receives. Perhaps that is Joker's most bitter criticism of the media. Arthur Fleck was never the story they wanted to tell. Joker was what sold. If you feel the same way I do, watch Joker again. This time, you may stop seeing it as a film about madness and start seeing it as a film about how the media creates the very monsters it claims to fear.